On episode 52 of Chit Chat, we run down some of the surprises from 2019. Some were truly thrilling reveals that swung in out of nowhere, while others just surprised us. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 52, and we're going to be talking about surprises, actually. And mostly the games that have surprised us this year, but also maybe some things that just surprised us this year, all related to the board game industry, hopefully. Now, a lot of these won't be the same things that we had on our top 10 list, which will be dropping very soon, or our holiday gift guide, which is already dropped, and those aren't just shameless plugs for those videos. But some of them might cross over into that in some respects. But before we get to any of the surprises, we've got a winner from last episode.
Right, so last episode we gave away bricks and fantasy realms. That's going to Jonathan White. Email us at manversusmeeple@gmail.com. And this week we're going to give away a copy of Papillon from Colossal Games. So make a comment below and you're entered to win. Who wants to start with surprises?
I mean, I've got one right off. Like, when you talk about surprises, I think about this one game that I played this year that we all played that I did not think was going to be good, and that's Medium. When I first heard about Medium and they say, oh, you just play some cards and guess a word, I was like, okay, sure, I'll try it. It took like maybe 5 seconds of playing that game for me to be like, this is amazing. How did nobody ever think about this?
One thing I'll say is, who explained that game to you as you pick some words and guess a word?
It was actually greater than games.
Oh, really?
That was like how
That's what they said?
I was like, the picture, like, yeah, one person has a word, and you guess a word in the middle. And I was like, okay, sure, like, it's a game.
Yeah, it is a game you have to experience.
Right.
Right? Like, I do think there's no description. Even if someone had the perfect description, you'd be like, okay, but then when you play it, that definitely is.
I was absolutely surprised by how much I ended up loving that game, and now I'll take it to every party I go to, I'll play it, and I'll evangelize this game to everyone because it was such a big hit for me.
Yeah, it's unique because we played that. Well, my first introduction to the game was for our live stream at Gen Con.
Same here.
I knew nothing about it other than you guys wanted to introduce it. I think you may have had access to it. We saw that being played. I didn't sit in and play it.
No.
But I saw people playing it and I was like, wait, why are people like cracking up? Because everything leading up to that was more a heavier weight game, no party games. So instantly got me interested. And you're right. I mean, the game is fantastic. And it's so crazy. The game is based off basically an old game that kids would play on the school ground.
I guess.
And that's basically what it is. Two kids would come up with the word and boom, there it is. And they've just gamified it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good game. That was surprising. And I think the same as your surprise is at the Gen Con thing. I was like, I didn't even hear about it before then either.
Right. Well, and it sold out at Gen Con, and it was like hard to get for a while, and people were still clamoring for it, and they still are. And I think I even said like it's a great stocking stuffer. So like get that, stick it in a stocking.
It's amazing that it did sell out because there wasn't a lot of hype before Gen Con, and then we were evangelizing the heck out of it during Gen Con. But
one of my big surprises this year was the fact that I actually enjoyed some race style games and some pick up and deliver games. And those I don't know, there's something about those types of games that I don't gravitate towards. I don't like them. Like, I really just steer away from them. All race games. And Fast Sloths and Nova Luna.
Both strongholds.
They are both strongholds, but they were both released at Spiel. One of them is by Uwe Rosenberg, and it's just a basic action game where you're moving around a rondelle and kind of Glenmore style. The person that's furthest behind on the rondelle keeps going. You're placing tiles, and it's just really fun. It's fast. You can teach it in 2 minutes, and you can play it in 20 minutes. And then you just immediately want to pick up and play again. It's just a really good game.
And it plays good at 2.
It plays
which is
great
nice.
at 2.
I imagine it plays, I've only played at 2, but I even was saying I think it would be a lot of fun at 3 too, because it would just add more like dynamicism to the encounter there because of the way that it works. It's such an interesting game. And yet, while it is a race game, it doesn't feel like a race game because I got really caught up in just what I was doing and just seeing how I could get everything to trigger off of itself. So I found my games have been very close, but I really just enjoyed the actual puzzle of it all.
Yeah, the puzzle's great. And then Fast Laws, which is a pick up and deliver and a race game. And again, it's just something about it just enamors me. It's probably the fact that you're using those animals and there's a different combination of them. There's 12 of them, you're going to use 6 of them. So every time you're playing with a different combination of them. And then it's cute. They can have expansion after expansion.
Yeah, I mean, both of those games have really interesting puzzles that you're solving. And the Nova Luna has a really satisfying turn no matter what you're doing. So, like, you almost kind of forget Like, it doesn't feel to me like turn after turn. It doesn't feel like you're racing. It doesn't feel like a race game. It just all of a sudden you see, oh, he's about to win, and that starts to happen. I think a little faster towards the end of the game. It's like your pace is pretty similar at first, but then someone starts to combo some stuff and get ahead, and it doesn't have that downside of race games, in my opinion, because a lot of race games end up having someone who goes way out ahead, and you kind of know, oh, well, they're going to win like a few rounds before the end. And even when that happens in Nova Luna, it doesn't feel that way for some reason.
Yeah. What about you?
I would say this was on a lot of our top 10 lists, all of our top 10 lists, but I'm going to list it as a surprise in another way, and that is Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions, 2 years, was it last year at Gen Con, Keyforge was like a surprise announcement no one had heard about. The same thing goes for Marvel Champions. Now, it had leaked out, and I think we'd heard some rumors here and there, but it kind of surprised everyone when they announced it, and the fact that they were taking that sort of format of a game and adding it to such a license was sort of a mind-blowing, exciting thing to think about. And I know it's all had an impact on us. You in particular, I think you were just gaga over it.
Right.
But yeah, just the surprise announcement alone, and I love that trend that FFG, hopefully they will do that year after year, because I always liked that back with like video game announcements where like you go to a trade show and all of a sudden like, whoa, they announced this game and they'd kept it under wraps for so long and no one knew about it. That's just exciting. So that was a bit of a surprise.
Talked about that before on this show, but I do miss that. I loved what they did last year with Keyforge, where they actually gave out the Keyforge decks. I encourage more of this from the industry. I think a couple years of Gen Con, when you walked into Gen Con and Twilight Imperium was announced and released that same day. Like, that's the kind of thing I want to see more of. I don't necessarily want to know about a game a year in advance, because by the time it comes out, maybe you're a little less excited. But Marvel Champions was coming out in like a month from the time they announced it.
I'm of two minds on that, but I do like the surprise. It's always fun to go and experience that firsthand. Like they did that with Clank in Space too, right? Renegade did that, where it was
Gen Con.
That was 2 years ago.
2 years of Gen Con. Anyway, nice surprises.
What do you care?
I think for me, and I know this may have been on somebody's top 10, I think it was on yours, but Cthulhu Death May Die. I backed that game. I had zero interest in the game. I'll be straight up honest. It was like, I just want the big, giant miniature. It was a total grab for me to have the toy, and I figured my husband and I would have fun painting it, and then the game shows up, and we all really like it a lot, and we want to play it a lot. I was thinking I was probably going to end up selling the game and just keeping the giant miniature ultimately, and now I know it's a game that will stay on my shelf for a while. So it was a nice surprise to see that I actually invested in more than a miniature. So
that game is a surprise for me too. I don't like those kind of games, and same with you to some degree. I'm really surprised that I like that as much as I do. Interestingly enough, my story is completely opposite of yours. I bought the game after the fact, after we played it, because of the gameplay, and I didn't buy the giant miniature. That's the only thing I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did back it, and I got cold feet. I started to like read about it, and I was like, I'm not sure that this is a game I'm going to enjoy. It just sounded too much like every other game I've already got. And this was at a point where I'm backing so many Kickstarters. It's like, it's time to take a break. So I canceled my pledge, and I was like, I didn't think about it again until I played it, and now I'm just kicking myself that I canceled that one, because I ended up loving the gameplay so much. So now I'm with you. I'm going to have to go back now and hunt down all the little individual pieces and try to rebuild that Kickstarter set.
good thing you know a few people that have it.
Yeah, we do.
That's true. That's true.
There are copies floating around that you could potentially borrow.
That is true.
I mean, none of ours, but someone's, I'm sure.
I'll find someone to let me borrow it. It's no problem.
Another big one for me was, it's not even out yet, but I want to mention it because it was a surprise at Gen Con, was Taboo, which was the Simon thing that we saw. We've all kind of forgotten it because it's been 4 months now that anyone's really talked about it. There hasn't been any new announcements, but it was the digital form of they were taking the analog version of games and turning it into kind of a digital analog mix. With Taboo, you'd lay the board over top of an electronic piece, and it would create images on your iPad or a phone. You could pass around phones or use your own individual device to make moves, to trade inventory. The game space and the development space for that are enormous. Right now, it's just going to be Zombicide?
Just that,
right?
a specific Zombicide.
At first.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, at first, but there's obviously room for different types of franchises to add on. But we walked into that room, And all of us were skeptical.
Totally.
Every single one of us
Super
were
skeptical.
Like,
that it was
do
gonna
we
be
even really
good.
want to do this?
Yeah, and walked out of the room firm believers that it can be a form of entertainment for board gamers to enjoy, especially for people that can be skeptical like we are. I'm not sure anyone in this space here loves Zombicide, but all of us want to play Zombicide now because of Taboo.
Well, yeah, it made it more of a palatable game. There's a lot about playing Zombicide that is maybe a bit of a drag, and this takes a lot of that out of the equation. That demo we played was a fun experience. Now, imagine if Death May Die incorporated some of that. I mean, a game that we really like, on top of it having some of that integration would be so cool.
Well, and I think too, so I was, several of us were just at PAX Unplugged, and I was talking to the folks I was staying with about it. They were very skeptical about it, and I said, I know, me too. And I actually went on this kind of like the whole walk back to our Airbnb. I was talking about it and explaining, like, they were really shocked. Like, I think the marketing hasn't been super clear. People think that it's going to be this expensive console system and that it's going to take existing games and put it on top. That's not at all what it is. I think that's the most interesting part for me, is that they're games that are specifically made for it. So while we are saying Zombicide, it was a Zombicide that was created for the system. And the console itself, I'm going to call it a console because that's kind of what it is, is $100 is what they're targeting from what we understood, and then the game will be the price of a game. So very much like having a console and buying a game for that console that you'll play a few times, hopefully more, and it works with the system. And so that was very surprising in our conversations with them, is that they just they hadn't grasped the concept or even caught on that was what they were going for. And so, yeah, to the point of Zombicide, I have like 3 different versions of Zombicide at home.
Really?
Yeah. The reason why they don't get out to the table is it is a tedious game to set up. It's a tedious game to play.
For sure.
And all the flipping of the cards. And the thing that was so apparent just with that particular game, in our experience, was how smooth all that was. It took all of that setup and upkeep out of it. But the potential for it, and like I think you had talked about things like Detective, being able to do that negotiation behind the scenes, that kind of stuff is what really gets me excited about it.
The hidden screen stuff that it can do. And one of the things that we thought was really cool as people with YouTube channel, is it would allow you to play virtually with other people all over the world. Like you could effectively play a game together, and that really, really would help facilitate that.
And what's worth noting is that while CMON is kind of partnering with them for this launch, it's not a CMON product, and it's not exclusive to CMON, although they do have kind of exclusive rights to launch the first game. They're opening this software up to every game company.
Yeah, I just hope people embrace it. I mean, that's the one thing I don't think any of us are truly yet sold on, is how well it will ultimately be supported, because it's cool, and what it does is really cool, but
how often will we see new games make the console? I think that's the thing. Only having one game accessible to it when it launches will be kind of like, okay, cool, I've got this new thing. I'm not going to want to play Zombicide that many times before the next game is available. So I'm hoping that schedule of things to come out will be tight.
I mean, there could be things being worked on right now that we don't even know about. So,
sure.
True.
Is there any one single game that you guys would consider to be the biggest surprise of the year, whether it was on the top 10 or not? Like one game that you were like, I had no idea it was either going to come, or I saw it and I was just like, it's not for me. And then you played it and was like, wow, this was great. Like, fantastic. What?
Marco Polo 2.
Really?
That kind of came out of nowhere. He had announced somewhere on Twitter that he was working on this Marco Polo thing, and people were like, well, is this an expansion? Is it a new game? No one really knew. Somebody had a prototype of it. I think it was Steph Hodge at BGG, and just didn't talk a lot about it, just posted some pictures, and I think we were all kind of wondering. And the next thing we know, they're announcing Marco Polo 2 coming out at Essen. And that was a complete surprise to me that it was coming out this year.
Yeah.
And even that it was a standalone game experience.
Yeah, they had talked to, maybe you were there, maybe you were there with me. Simone was at Origins, and he talked to us about Marco Polo 2, but I had no idea it was going to be at Spiel. Like, they literally announced it the week prior.
Yeah.
And, it's a phenomenal game. The reason why I asked this question was one of the games that surprised me most was probably Horrified. Like,
that's good. That's a good
I saw Rodney's Watch It Played, and I didn't watch it. I just saw that it was announced, and I knew it was from Prospero Hall. He's always done some really good stuff. And I picked up a copy at Gen Con, and it took me a while to actually get it played, but I was completely surprised on how good that game is, especially for a mass market game. Like, it came out and it immediately grabbed my attention. Maybe it's because of the universal monsters that are included in it. Maybe it's because the gameplay is so simple, but it's such an easy teach. And I think that this is, again, I mentioned this in our top 10. Wingspan is one of those games that can be introduced to a wide variety of people. I think Horrified's in that same boat.
For sure.
It's one of those games that you can sit down with family, friends, young, old, and just say, here, let's play this game. It's very simple and it's enjoyable. No matter your experience level with board games or not. Like, it's the big surprise this year for me.
There's something to be said for being able to sit down with gamers of any type and say something like, we're trying to fight Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Everyone understands in a general sense, okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, we're not growing anything in a farm. It's just, we're trying to fight Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman.
Yeah.
And we're doing it together. Okay. And then it's co-op so that anyone can kind of, if they're struggling, you can say, oh, well, you could do this. Because everyone's helping each other. And then by the end of the game, everyone's like solving the puzzle and really participating. Yeah, it's Horrified's a really good surprise.
And I think Prospero Hall has just had a surprising year altogether. I mean, they've had several releases that were all very surprising. Between that, Funkoverse, the Jaws game, even the Top Gun game, which was just like silly fun.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy.
Just these games are not what you would normally think about when you think of IP games. Like, these kind of define that a little bit in a new way, that they're actually really good games that just happen to also be IPs.
Yeah.
So I have one. I don't know that I would classify it as the biggest surprise for me, but it is one that's come to mind after you sort of cornered us with that question.
Yeah.
And that's Flick of Faith. Flick of Faith is surprising on many levels. One, it's really surprising that Awakened Realms made this game. You don't think of Awakened Realms and go, yeah, a cute dexterity game. But that's what this is, and it's a really fun game. It's really well produced. And it kind of came out of nowhere, right? I mean, they didn't, it's not like...
They just showed up.
It's just like, oh yeah, there's this, and it's going to be at Essen also. And that was really surprising in and of itself. And if you have a chance of getting it, and it is going to be hitting, right? Soon, available somehow?
No idea.
No idea?
He's working on it.
They're working on
But I
it.
don't know what the date is what I mean by
We don't know
no
what the
idea.
date is, but I think Flick of Faith might be available to people in general, other than people that went to Essen. You should check it out. That was a really, really cool surprise.
Yeah. Anything for you?
Positive surprises?
Yeah.
What about negative surprises?
I was going to say, because like when you said that, there were two things that surprised me, and they weren't necessarily the most positive
what are they?
surprises.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there were two games that were hyped by the two of you, mostly, for me, and going into them.
Well, that's not surprising.
Yeah. But going into them, and I was thinking, oh, well, this should be good. I should be into these games. I should like them because it seems like they'll be games that we'll enjoy. And one was Machi Koro Legacy, which was ultimately a super boring experience to me. And I mean that in that I get what it's trying to do, and it's making a cutesy little version of a game that I probably wouldn't have played anyway. And
Like
so
the original?
the original,
Have
yeah.
you ever played the
No,
original?
it never appealed to me, and so I was like, oh, this might appeal to me, and at first it did, and by the time we were done, I was ready for it to be over, and I was just done with it.
Before we get into the second
Yeah.
game, I want to address the Machi Core Legacy thing
Okay.
because okay. So Clank
That's just my
no, honestly, Clank Legacy is a game that we enjoyed prior going into our Clank. We enjoyed prior going to Clank Legacy. We've never really liked Machi
neither one
Core
of
as a
us.
game.
No,
so
yeah,
it's
most gamers
just
don't.
more Machi Core with layers. Now I will say this about Machi Core Legacy: it is a better game than Machi Koro. It's a more enjoyable game than Machi Koro. We haven't played Machi Koro,
Yeah.
so you don't know. But it is a better experience than Machi Koro. But you're playing it 10 times. So if you don't like Machi Koro, I don't think you're going to like it. But I think they did do enough to make people that enjoy that game, and there's a lot of people that like Machi Koro,
Oh, yeah.
make them a legacy game that they will enjoy. I'll say that about
Yeah.
it. But yeah, none of
And
us,
I'll,
I think,
I'll
really
add
loved
on
the
to that to
experience.
say that I would easily see myself getting that game for a family, like one of my family members, for their family as a gift.
Especially if they
Because
have
I
kids.
can see,
Yeah.
exactly, with kids, I can see it being a really fun experience. But it was a disappointment for me because I went into it expecting a different experience than what I got out of it. And so it was disappointing
A little
for me.
too random for us.
It was a
but
little
yeah.
bit of a surprise to me that I didn't enjoy it more there.
What's your second?
My second one is obviously Orleans Stories. We've talked about
Oh,
that one
yeah.
already. We like our Orleans. You guys had introduced that to me not that long ago, and I went into this. I mean, you were so hyped. I mean, we just could not go to that booth enough before SN opened to pick up your copy. You were so into it and they weren't ready for you yet. And I'm like, geez, this game's going to be great. And then we sit down and we play it. And I remember going, are you sure you guys want to keep playing? We obviously aren't enjoying ourselves over and over. And it was just not fun.
I was not part
at
of this
all.
group.
No, you were not.
I just got my copy of Orleans Stories.
Yeah.
The jury is out for me. I am going to try it, although I will, truth be told, the shrink wrap is still on the box. So I have considered, do I take the shrink wrap off? Do I trust these guys' opinions? I'm not sure, because Orleans is one of my favorite games, and I really want to see that this is
And the
good.
reason it was a surprise is just that, again, like the other one, and more for this one, was that you guys were so excited. It's very rare that when you're that excited for a game that it under-delivers so greatly to the experience you were expecting. And so and it did for me, and I will say, yes, I blame the fact that I allowed the hype to get me excited about it, and that I went into it. I didn't have any expectations about what it was going to be. I knew it was Orleans, so there'd be some elements of Orleans there, but it was clearly a much different game. It's just not a game that appeals to me personally, and so I did not enjoy it, and it was kind of a bummer surprise.
Trust me, there were no winners that day when we played Orleans
No, there
Stories.
wasn't.
That was
Do you have any
Maybe
surprise
me.
disappointments?
surprise disappointments.
Surprise disappointments?
So like, I guess we talked about this off camera a little bit, but the thing about me is like I become very skeptical about games.
Sure.
So I am almost to the point where I just
Everything's a pleasant surprise?
right. Like I just expect everything to be bad. I think Orleans Stories was the one for me that I was like, there's no way they're going to get this wrong. I thought, and then we
agree.
played it, and I was like, they got it wrong. They took away the heart of what makes Orleans so good, which is the point salad aspect of like doing all these different strategies, and they turned it into a race game, and not even a good race game. A race game like where you mentioned, once someone gets so far ahead, there's really nothing you can do to slow them down. And it just left me feeling very unsatisfied. So it's probably the most disappointed I've been in a game for a while. Now, if Marco Polo 2 had been really bad, I probably would have felt that same kind of disappointment, or Maracaibo. But some of these games that I'm really excited about usually
Deliver.
Well,
And that was
and
kind
you're-
of my point.
And you're excited for, and we had every reason to be excited for Orleans whatever. So it's kind of the same boat.
If I had to choose the game that disappointed me most, I blame you guys. And for me,
A lot of blame being cast around here. I'm
for
glad
me,
I'm out of
honestly,
this.
It was Ishtar. Because you guys both were like, Ishtar's the best, and I love
it's
Bruno
super
Catala. And I played that game, and it just didn't leave me feeling anything by the end of it. I was
That's
just
fair.
like, okay, it was a game. Like, it's nowhere near as good as Five Tribes or Yamatai or most of Bruno's games. So, like, honestly, that's still splitting hairs. Like, I think I left that game. It was okay. I don't need to ever play it again, but I know you guys love it.
Yeah.
And to each their own. So I was expecting maybe just a more...
That was a pleasant surprise for me.
Right, exactly. So maybe I just let the hype get to me a little bit on that one.
Are you going to ask me if I have a
No, I've
surprise
got all kinds
disappointment?
of both, but I'll talk about one real
I
quick.
was going to say, he'll probably be the quicker one because he
All right.
doesn't have that many
This
negatives.
is a surprise, both good and bad. It's Star Wars Outer Rim. I really so we don't. No
yeah.
one really talks about the game, unfortunately. We gave it a lukewarm review. You and I did the review, on it,
Yeah.
right?
Liked
Because
it.
of the length, but I really like what they tried to do with it, and I think that it can be fixed with a single expansion.
Yeah.
I felt like it was too long of a game. We played twice, and it was 2.5, 3 hours each time.
I've heard from other people that they're not having those same experiences, so it makes
how.
me wonder what
I
I
don't
know.
know.
You heard that from me. Too.
Not just
Okay.
you, yeah,
Well, because
from others.
we challenged ourselves at Dice Tower Con. There was 5 of us.
Oh, you and Derek. And
It was like, me, Derek, and there 4 of us. Matt Falusi and Sean Varos from
Sure.
whatever. Anyway, we decided we were going to play like at midnight. And we were like, no, we're all tired. We got through that game, teaching everything, in like an hour and 45 minutes with like a 4-player game.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not sure how you can enjoy the game and try to do all the strategies you want to do. However, there is immense fun to be found when you're controlling Boba Fett using the Millennium Falcon and going on missions to capture people. And it's just,
when
there's
I
a
had
lot of flavor in
Han
that
Solo
game.
and you had Han Solo, and I had a guy who captured Chewbacca, and it caused this whole contention between us. Like, that was fun for
Thematically,
me.
it's perfect. I
Yeah.
just don't know if all the gameplay gels perfectly. I think an expansion will make it great. But I was really surprised by that game.
I think-
I like what it's trying to do. I think there's some changes that can be
I think it was
made.
really good. I really enjoyed it.
What about you?
You want my surprise disappointment?
Yeah.
So I'm generally regarded as Mr. Positive around here. I just want to say, I do have surprise disappointments. I'm trying to think of some board game ones, but for instance, in not board games, His Dark Materials on HBO.
Yeah.
I started watching that, and
I gave
we
up on that.
literally, just like she was describing feeling about a board game a second ago, I felt about this show, and I was just like, I'm kind of done with this. It's very disappointing. But as it relates to board games, I'm significantly disappointed in Ryan's opinion of Ishtar.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
Same.
In your
I am
disappointment
too.
of Ishtar.
I thought before today that Ryan had good taste in games.
Is that right?
Apparently he doesn't. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't really have any massive disappointments. I mean, we play a lot of games, and I'll be honest, there's games that we play on some days that are not great. But like you said, I kind of go in with a fairly cynical attitude.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of games where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my favorite game. And then it's just like, And can you think of any that you'd call me out on?
No.
Like, I'm genuinely asking. I'm
just don't
trying
like
to
any
think if there's
games.
been some games this year where I was like,
I think there's
super
games
stoked, and
I
then
think
it was
there's
like,
games
meh,
you've been super stoked on, then you've gradually come around to our side.
to not liking them.
To finding
Peer
the flaws
pressure.
in them. To finding the
Aquatica.
issues, the true issues within the
Oh
game.
no, I
and-
didn't like Aquatica that much.
Well, like Tapestry is
I
one
think
of
you
those
would've liked
games.
it more.
I
Like,
figured that Tapestry was what you were getting
Tapestry,
at.
in my opinion, again, is a really fun game. There's just these flaws that are throughout the game that need to be fixed. If they can fix those, there's something there that's truly enjoyable. But it took a couple plays for us to truly find those. And I don't think you've probably played Tapestry since we've done.
Oh no, I have.
then
Not
I
with
stand corrected.
not with you, but I do. I enjoy Tapestry.
I do too.
recognize some of those things that I think are maybe a little OP and things like that, but I still enjoy it immensely. I really, there's nothing about that game or many other games that I was really hyped for that had so much that I didn't like that I was just like,
We were definitely hyped for that game. We did all kinds of fun stuff.
Like,
for
I'm
that
very
game.
interested to try Orleans Stories, honestly. Even if it's a horrible experience, I'm excited to see what it's like.
Sure.
So you know what? As far as surprises go, there's one thing really quick that I'm surprised you didn't mention, and that's Zombie Kids, which
Oh, surprise.
that
Was
this
that, was
year?
that this year?
Yeah,
That
you
was
guys
this
showed it to
year.
me
That was
earlier this
way
year.
earlier this
Way
year.
early this year, but man, when you
Great
guys,
game.
when you sat me down to play that game, I did not think it was going to be anything.
You were like, nah.
And it was actually a ton of fun. Like, and I feel like
High
you
five?
guys were very surprised. Right? I feel like you guys were very surprised that you actually enjoyed that. You played through the whole thing.
Played
right?
through like 32 games
we
or something. of
finished it. Yeah, it's
played a lot,
definitely
but-
going to end up under the tree for a couple of
It's
kids
like
in
a
my life.
3 to 5 minute game.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we played like 30
was
some of
super
them. We
fun,
spent
though.
almost all of the retreat one night for like 4 hours.
Teaching other
playing,
people,
And playing
yeah.
through it, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you guys taught it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
would
it's
get.
a good game.
All in all, I think there's obviously a lot of games that come along every year that surprise us a little bit. I mean, we play so many, like I just said. I mean, another one, just as you were talking, came to mind. Liftoff, that we played
yeah.
from Z-Man, was a really pleasant surprise.
game.
I didn't even know anything about that game until I came over here one day and you got a copy. It was just sitting here and we tried it, and I mean, I think all four of us really enjoy that.
That's a good game.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
I mean, it didn't come out this year, but I definitely surprised me, and I was excited. Is that there's actually a tiny epic that might supersede Galaxies
We
for
can't
me.
go one chit chat without you bringing up
Nope.
Tiny Epic.
Tiny Epic Dinosaurs.
Every
It's so
time.
good.
We're renaming it Tiny Epic Chit Chat. I
Yeah.
think.
but hey,
Well, but
you know what?
but it is, because Galaxies has been, I mean, my favorite game for so long, and so to see, I can't wait to see the final of Dinos. But it was a nice surprise to go, actually, you know, I like all the Tiny Epics, but this might actually be a new favorite for me. That was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
I've got one more, and I'll shut up after this.
Cool.
Expansion-wise, the best
surprising.
expansion this year, Baron Park.
Yeah.
Yes!
Yes, actually.
good.
Totally.
So good. I
changes
didn't
the
know that.
game.
I didn't. It changes the game dramatically, and it makes the game even better than what it
Super
already was.
fun.
Yeah.
Interestingly
Fantastic
enough, I
expansion.
have that expansion. I don't have Baron Park. So I need a copy of Baron Park to use that expansion. But I've heard the great things about
It's
that.
so
In fact,
good.
my son demoed that at Gen Con, and he doesn't play a lot of games, and he was like, that's a game I'd play.
Yeah.
The one with the monorails.
All right, so that is our last chit chat for 2019 episode 52.
That's
Remember,
surprising.
That's a lot of episodes. Remember to make a comment below, and you're going to be entered to win Papillon from Colossal Games. If you guys have any questions about anything we've mentioned today or have your own surprises of 2019, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook and Instagram, and everything else that we do. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye. Well, that's another episode of Chit Chat in the bag. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out another one, there's probably one right over here in the bottom left-hand corner, or probably your right-hand corner. Whatever corner, we have something to click on. So click on one of these things and good things will happen.